Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 13th meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust. I'm going to call the meeting to order. All our membership is currently live, so we'll just begin. Tonight we actually have, 2 months ago, Carl Moyson was here to do a quick presentation on the property at 165 Worcester Street. He's actually provided us with an updated PowerPoint. So, Carl, why don't you come up and I just want to make sure I know we missed a month here, but just to reiterate that this is a project that we're looking to extend a helping hand on. So with that in mind, you know, the presentation from here will of course go up to the select board should Carl decide that he wants to go through the actual LIP process. We want to make sure that we're open and available to providing the expertise that's needed, any comments that would be helpful, and then hopefully, you know, pass it along to you guys, the select board. Anyways, Carl, I'll let you reintroduce yourself.
Sure.
And then we'll load the PowerPoint up, and you can just guide us through kind of where you're at.
Okay. Thank you. Name's Carl Moyson, 35 Magnolia Lane, North Grafton, Mass. Been a resident of Grafton for over 12 years. Work, live, and pray in Grafton. My son, William, is also a partner in the company, Central Mass Modular Development. He's been in the real estate business for approximately 7 years now. I obviously have been in the business for a while with my position at Homefield. We decided to take this project on after we had the opportunity to purchase the lot. My son's of the age of, actually all three of my kids are in the age of home buying and noticing that it's a difficult process in order to have affordability. So we decided to take this project on with the hopes of providing affordable housing for the town as well as an asset for the family. So the last time we did a kind of an overview of the presentation. Some people had some questions, and I'm trying to address those questions as well. But we wanted to get into the pro forma, for lack of a better term, on if the project would be able to exist or sustain itself. And I can get into the presentation, or
Yeah, just Chris loads it up for you.
thank you. I pirated the graphics.
It's all right. It's there for everybody.
Yeah. So actually, you can go to the third slide if you could, Chris. That would be great. The property in question, or being proposed, is 165 Worcester Street in North Grafton. The lot size is 13,961 square feet. I'm proposing a one building, 6-unit project, with 3 of the units being, or 50% of the project, being considered affordable housing under the AMI 80%.
1 bedrooms or?
Actually, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. I was going to get, if you
Sorry.
follow along with the slides, I guess. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is a depiction of the survey that we did a while back. The project itself, so we're talking about a 750 square foot unit, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath with a garage underneath. You know, that type of building, that 6-unit would be, you know, I grew up in a home that's about 900 square feet and with a 1.5 bath, and it was more than ample at the time. So a 2 bedroom unit would be would work. So we have the from a topical perspective of what it would look like, a couple of photos as we go through. I think I'm on, there we go, thank you. From a street view, both sides of the street, from the back of the project, and then we have from the other neighbors' purview. We're looking to, so I'll go over the the project itself. And we're talking 700 square feet, 750 square feet approximately, plus or minus. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, garage, like I said. We think that the rents, based on market analysis, that we're going to get into the project pro forma, I guess. Yep, thank you. The rents would be for the 3 non-affordable units would be approximately $26.50. The numbers we use for the affordable would be $18.50. Total project on a monthly basis, and then you look at it. What I tried to do is show what a lender would be looking at as a way in which the property would be sustainable. And if you do the math here, and there's plenty of room for ancillary costs such as maintenance and things like that, it comes out with what they call a debt service coverage ratio of 1.234. Most lenders are using that 1.2 as a benchmark. Sometimes they go under. Sometimes, obviously, a lender would want more, but that is right in what I would say is the sweet spot for a property. So even with the 3 units being affordable, the property sustains itself based on our estimated cost. Just like any other affordable housing property, there's going to be a deed restriction and a mortgage restriction based on the rents, and it would be monitored under the particular codes, the monitoring system that was changed in 2021. There are a number of groups that would be engaged, or a group would be engaged to monitor the property to make sure that we consistently keep it at affordable housing, which is obviously the goal. Current lot tax amount is assessed at $107,000. Current tax bill is approximately $2,000. The projected tax assessment, and this is an estimate based on the math, is at $1.6 million. The projected tax bill, and again an estimate, is $27,000. So it's a considerable jump in taxes that the property would be paying. Now, again, that's an estimate. Sometimes the assessment would come in a little lower depending on. I did order an appraisal. I haven't gotten it yet, but I think it's going to be right in that 1.4 to 1.6 range. So we're talking a nice tax revenue or a tax increase for the town. Like I said, each unit's at 750 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. The development includes 2 parking spaces per unit, so 1 for the garage, 1 in the garage, and then 1 parking spot in the project.
Hey, sorry.
Yeah, he did. How are you? Local preference to the affordable units. We're talking about current Grafton residents, municipal employees, and those working for Grafton businesses. The affordable housing laws are, want to make sure that its inclusion is going towards the people that are actually living in the town, and that's what we're trying to establish here. Emergency services, and I should have known this, but I didn't realize that the North Grafton Fire Station is literally 0.2 miles away. And I know that there's a proposal to put a park up right across the street from that. They're going to do some rehab of that park, being on another board. We discussed that matter the other day. So it's the Mill Street Park, I guess. So that's on the docket. The main fire station is 2.3 miles away, and obviously the police station is about 2.5. Matt had a couple of questions, and I wanted to make sure I addressed them. Maintenance of the property, obviously, we try to do as much as we could, but I asked for a request for a proposal for a local property management company. They do the actual landscaping and things at our office at Homefield. And I asked him for a proposal, and he said, I'm more than happy to write that up if you want to take a purview of that.
Great, thank you.
Just a couple of companies that we're dealing with right now: Waterman Design, the civil engineer, landscape architect. The modular company that I'm in discussions with is Preferred Building Systems. Another question that Matt had was, can you give me a couple of photos of some of the work that they've done? And these are some of the projects, or the multifamilies that they have in play. There's a past stigma with regards to modular homes, and I think nowadays you'd be surprised when you're walking down certain streets, you would not know that they are modular. And some of these projects are obviously they're all in New England, and they've done a nice job of putting these developments together, and you would never know that they were modular. I'm up for questions. Anything that you might have, or anything. I need your help. This is the first project that my son and I are taking on, but I think it's worthy of consideration.
So just some brief history there, of course. I mentioned this at the last meeting. There was a previous non-affordable project that was denied by the ZBA on the site. This, of course, is a little bit different approach. Of course, we would go through the same channels. If Carl decides he wants to go through a LIP process, we go to the select board, we negotiate that LIP, and then, of course, it goes over to the ZBA. We'll have some updates a little bit later on where we're at as far as safe harbor and long-term goals. But, as we all know, this project's been derelict and abandoned for quite some time now. And there are very little uses that can actually occur there with that would not require some type of variance.
What was the scope of the project that was previously denied there?
I think it was a couple of
This is a straight two-family.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no affordable
It's like a
component.
duplex.
Side by side.
Why?
Yeah, why?
You'd have to ask the ZBA. So I'm not entirely sure. So this is something that Carl is approaching us for us to lend a hand. So now that we have a little bit more detail and something digestible that we can kind of work with.
Sure.
We're gonna have to have another meeting in 2 weeks anyways. So we can ask some more questions of them. We'll bring you back for that other meeting.
Sure.
And then I'll get with Chris and we'll put together a quick cheat sheet of a path forward
Okay.
and try to get our schedule of events that we would need to do. And then, of course, we can work with Matt to coordinate with the select board. So it would be nice to send something over to the ZBA once we have a little bit more. Say, look, this is what we're trying to do. They don't typically give you like a straw poll of type of things like this, but at the very least, if we're putting in this effort, and it's for a noble cause, we can make sure that we have something that's at least going to get looked at. And then, of course, ZBA has the public hearing process and all that business. So aesthetics and, vinyl siding versus all that stuff is going to be kind of washed out and reevaluated when we get to that point. Does anybody have any more questions for Carl before we cut him loose? Chris?
Not a question, but I would just invite you to a development team meeting.
Sure.
Every Thursday. I think there's enough information here for staff to start to dig into it as well. And,
That'd be great.
just provide some feedback on
More
that.
guidance, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
perfect.
Brittany, any impressions based on the
Aesthetics.
Some of
I
the
was holding
as-built
my
stuff.
tongue a little bit.
don't
Can you go back to the street view, Chris?
Yeah, there was a couple. Is there a...
Yeah, I guess just the flat face on the street is a little, might be something that comes up, and just the flatness of the building. It's literally a rectangle. Just a little bit of dimension would help, I think. I know it's always a little bit more costly to do that, but it just makes a big difference.
Similar to the last, or the second
Yeah,
to
your
last slide.
first
with
precedent
some
image. Yeah.
different, yeah, I mean, that was.
I know it's
the-
preliminary.
No, exactly. So, that's great feedback.
Yeah.
All right.
so is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, some of, different
Yep.
type of,
And
yeah,
you'll see
instead
it
of
in the Upton, in the package we got, the Upton Street elevations, they did that, and it looks a lot better. So.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
You must have anything? Well, Carl, thank you.
Thank you,
Oh,
everyone.
thanks for coming in and,
Yeah, thanks.
yeah, addressing some of the questions. We appreciate
No
it.
problem, thank you.
Just real quick, what is your schedule like when you look to, I mean, the ZBA track is gonna take months. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at early next year at least.
I'm hoping for spring, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be ideal. I'm not gonna go at it in the wintertime, that's for sure.
Of course.
Yeah, so,
And of course, sewer, water, and gas are all staffed on site.
right there, and fire hydrants, 2 houses down, so it's a prime.
There is a hand raised in the audience, so I'll leave it to you if you'd like to recognize that.
Sure, you gotta bring it up. Let me know who I'm talking about. Alright, Beth.
Yes,
You just need to identify yourself if you would. Let us know where you live, and then just feel free to ask a question.
right. Were you pointing to me? I'm Beth Cohen. I'm at 167 Worcester Street. I live right next door to the property. And I just want to make sure, can you hear me?
Yep.
You can.
Okay. So one question, just a specific one to start. If you pull up, if you would, please, the survey and then the proposed, it's not letting me see this now. But if you look at the survey and the slide that's right after that. Okay, so if you take a look at the survey, and I'm just to the west of the property or to the left as you're looking at it. And if you look from Worcester Road and follow the boundary line down as it's shown on the survey, and then you go to the next page, it doesn't show the same thing. You can see again to the left where they've got cars parked over there. It's hard to tell from this which is the boundary line. I see this as existing vegetation. But even this dotted line here, closer up towards Worcester Street, is not the same lines that are on the actual survey. And I was wondering if you could tell me why that was, please?
Sure. It's an initial draft of a rendering. It's not, to the survey. The survey was provided to the drawer of the scenario, but before they would start work, they would have to do a full-blown survey anyways. So
It's a concept drawing.
exactly, total concept.
Okay, so it's a concept plan, but I think it's going to leave it with a little less room there for the cars than is shown. But and also if I can ask the board just to make sure I have this right, that Grafton's in safe harbor now, so there is no legal requirement for a comprehensive permit to be granted, and it's at the discretion of the zoning board. Is that accurate?
I would say at this point, yes. When this
Oh.
gets before the ZBA, whether or not we'll be in safe harbor, that's in question. I'm going to assume that we are going to be.
Okay. All right. Then I do have some questions. As we know, this came before, it was a duplex actually, before the zoning board about 2 years ago, and it got shot down for a number of reasons. But I'd just like to go over a few of them and ask what the owner's done to address them. One of them, as I explained at those meetings, is that it's a really poor line of sight in terms of the ingress and egress. And when I bought my home here, which was about 3 years ago, I got a call from the broker of the then owner of the property, literally the day I closed, saying that my neighbor would like to buy some of my land because I've got more than sufficient frontage, and because the line of sight was so awful getting in and out of that lot, and they'd like to be able to do something with it at some point. And I haven't heard anything that addresses that.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's not particularly up for us to demand it at this point.
I just want to be upfront with my neighbor about some of the concerns that were raised before. I can go, just let me ask then if I would. Last time I listened in on this meeting, and I thought I heard Carl say that the environmental issues there had been addressed.
That's
Is
correct.
is there a no further action letter or something to that effect that's been filed or can be filed so we can see that?
It has been filed
Filed where, please?
with the EPA, I believe.
The state,
State,
the state DEP office should handle any of the stage one engineering that are there.
correct.
That would be something that would be provided in the packet as it goes to the ZBA, or even when it goes to the building inspector's office if something's going to be built.
Okay. As a neighbor, I'd like to just comment that I think on either side of this, there are, yes, and I'm talking about my own home, but also the neighbor on the other side. There's two beautiful two-story homes that have no garages. And what's being proposed is a 6-unit, 3-story because of all the garages below. I find it to be pretty unsightly. And to the extent I've seen these kinds of things before, I'm used to the developer coming in with a proposed buffer, something to beautify it or to make it a little more consistent with the neighboring properties. And I'm a little dismayed that that doesn't seem to be the case here. I mean, and Carl, I mean, no offense, it's not personal, but I'm in real estate. I've been in real estate all my life. It feels like this is an undersized lot where you're shoehorning in as many units as you possibly can, and they're really small units. And that's a little tough to take. And this, again, it's just my opinion as a neighbor. I have one last question, which is a legal question, and I had written this to you earlier this year, Carl, because I wanted us to be able to speak as neighbors. But at any rate, the recorded plan that subdivided this property specifically notes on the plan, and I can give you the book and page, that when it was subdivided, the lots that remain were noted at the Registry of Deeds on the recorded plan as unbuildable lots. How do you get around that one for this proposed plan?
That's, to be honest, that's something a little bit out of our purview here. If this is something that
I'm sorry, I was actually asking the owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but you know what, actually, this is a conversation I think you guys can have separately. It
Yeah.
doesn't really have anything to do with the Affordable Housing Trust. I mean, we want to provide a forum here for people to raise concerns about affordable housing developments, but once it starts getting into ZBA questions and legal questions, this isn't the format for that.
Yeah, I'd have to talk to my counsel, Beth.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for the consideration.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much. Carl,
Thank you.
we'll talk to you sometime next week.
Awesome.
And we'll ask Amber to set up a development team meeting for you.
Thank you.
And some of the questions that Beth had raised is something that you can kind of go through.
Sure.
As well.
It's good to know that these are the questions that are going to be raised for you, so you can,
Absolutely.
when and if you have to
No,
address those. But
So look at it, this is a positive thing.
yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks.
It's a good presentation, Carl.
Appreciate it.
If you have any more feedback after tonight, if you could just direct them right to Amber, and then we'll have Amber send them right over to Carl. So if you can think of something a little bit later on, or something to that effect, and that of course would be helpful.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as an aside, I wish more developers would do massing models. That was-
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a very well put together project on a piece of property that hasn't done anything in well over a decade. So
Yeah, I think there's some multifamily right across the street, isn't there?
there's
I believe
multifamilies
all over
littered
there.
down
All over.
Yeah.
that entire quarter.
Makes
Yeah, right across the
sense.
street was a fairly large one.
Yeah,
was
that
just
white house right there in the corner. Yeah.
It actually looks very nice too. Okay, so I'm going a little bit out of order tonight. We have an RFP on there. I just want to get this out of the way. So has everybody had a chance to kind of review what Chris had sent, just format wise, what we're trying to get accomplished? Is everybody more or less happy with the things that are involved there? So Karen had reached out to us. She did the previous one. I am assuming she's going to bid on this, and it'll probably be competitive, seeing that she has most of the information already. But of course, we have to go through the process by issuing the RFP. Chris, are you going to handle that for us?
Yeah, it will probably be in coordination with the town administrator's office. I know William typically does the postings for RFPs, but
I don't
obviously
mind
we'll-
doing that for us, because we can go through our own if we need to. But
No, I think they
Send some-
would, they would
okay.
prefer to handle it.
what do they need? How many weeks? Do they need a head start? What do they?
So that's a little bit where I would ask for the board's input. I left the dates kind of off. I think we can probably move pretty quickly. I would recommend at least, I want to say at least 3 weeks to generate some responses. Might be able to do 2 and extend it, but
Is everybody okay with kind of being as vanilla as it is? Can,
That's fine.
okay. So we need an official copy of the RFPs for us to put our signatures on, I believe, before we send it out.
Yep.
So if you can go from the form you're in now into a final form that we can vote on.
yep, let me just double check if I had the signature page.
I guess the one question that I had was around, there's one community input meeting, and I'm just wondering if that is enough.
Yes.
And I don't know what the answer is. I think our experience has been sometimes community input meetings are good, but sometimes they're not so good, and I don't know. But it's so we do these every 5 years, right?
What are we're coming up to the tail end of this. I thought it was every 2 years it needed to be re-evaluated.
Every 5, yeah.
Is every 5, all right.
Okay. So that's probably fine. I don't know. I'm just thinking about the comprehensive plan too, and I think there's a little bit more community involvement, but where this happens a little bit more often.
Yeah, I think it'll dovetail with a lot of that work. There are. Let me just double check what I put in the RFP. There were some, which is required. The public engagement.
I just saw the one, but then I did see also there'll be other meetings that they will be expected to attend, I guess, at cost, and
Yeah, there's typically the stakeholder meetings, which would be with boards and any other stakeholders that are identified. If there's specific community leaders, or something representative of Habitat for Humanity, for example, if we wanted to identify something like that, they could be engaged as part of it. But then there would be generally a informal workshop, which would allow for engagement of the public to express their concerns and discuss topics related to the housing production plan that they felt.
If I remember correctly from the last one, we had 3. Between workshop and principals and stuff like that, and they ended up just being 3 meetings with the housing trust because nobody else showed up.
Right.
So we did start preliminarily with Amber reaching out to she reached out to the ZBA, and I believe she reached out to planning board, which I don't know if it got on your agenda.
it did.
Okay, so we're making the inroads before we even launch this, so we make sure we get some input from some of the relevant boards, especially with regards to zoning, to get some input. So at the very least this time, even if we block out one official meeting, we're gonna have a couple other meetings where whoever bids on it will be able to come in and entertain some more comments, and then we'll do the job on our side of making sure that we invite everybody officially.
Yep. Okay.
So
I mean, I was happy with the deliverables and the timeline. It is kind of generic, but I thought our last one was pretty good too. So,
okay. Well, everybody's happy with what we have. We can just get this set up tonight.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Okay. Well, then I will entertain a motion. Just you can probably print it. We can sign it sometime next week, or whatever, when you can get the official.
Yeah, I can add a signature page and have this. I am off tomorrow, but I can have it printed for Monday. And I'm happy to distribute it as needed to get the signatures.
Is everybody comfortable doing it that way?
Yeah.
sure.
Be able to make our way down here sometime this week.
You just swing by here and sign it in your office?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So I'll make a motion that we adopt the or approve the RFP for the updated housing production plan with minor clerical edits as presented.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate the work you did on
That
this.
was nice.
Hmm?
Not doing roll call.
That was,
Love
wasn't it? Yeah, that was. Old school.
Nobody's out there. Yeah, it is a little weird. I didn't quite know what to do. I'm like, what, do I say something? I don't even know. We have some minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review the June 16th and August 11th minutes? I'll entertain a motion to approve June 16th and August 11th meeting minutes as drafted.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The meetings are going to be recorded. Okay, so
We're, just real quick before we move on, where are we in terms of posting meeting minutes? Are we caught up?
we are caught up now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
Yep.
check.
All right, so I'm going to start with 27 Upton Street. I shotgunned everybody like 7,000 documents that came in last week. So this project is, it's been on a couple different tracks. The most recent track that everybody is familiar with was a partnership between GSX and Beacon, which involved a couple of things. Well, while they were involved in the diligence period, they couldn't make a deal work out between the two of them. So they both backed out of the deal. So the time that was spent trying to cultivate that deal is now just elapsed and it's gone. So GSX reached out to me and asked me to start the process again, and I told them it's made such a substantive change that we need to, whatever project is there, we need to put back on the regular track, especially with regards to the grant proposal and stuff like that, because it's out of my element to negotiate that type of thing without coming back to the trust and saying, okay, well, it's going back to what it was before. But I did make sure that, instead of going back to square one, which was just some preliminary concepts and nothing, nothing really of substance, I asked them to give me as much information as possible on the project, what they were going to do, and enlighten us a little bit more on, GP and LP funding sources that they're looking for, where the money's coming from for the actual building, their schedules and stuff like that. So they bombarded me with a bunch of stuff. So in piecing through those things, as you kind of go through that, we of course don't need to do it tonight, but if you have any questions that I can send to them, I was hoping just to bring the two principals from GSX into the next month's meeting. But I want to make sure it's not one of those dead meetings where we just spin wheels and waste yet another month, seeing that we've wasted like a year and a half. So they have the PNS, they still have until next summer to make good on the purchase. They're going back to the original design, which is a little over 120 units, but they've done some more survey work and they've shored up some of the wetlands impact and things that are going to be of substantive nature with regards to permitting. My guess is going to be looking to permit this at the beginning of the year, sometime in the first quarter, so they've got a ways to go to get a bunch of diligence done. But it looks like they're actually going through the effort now. So I'm guessing Beacon is completely out. If Beacon comes back into the picture, I have no idea at that point. But I can at least get them here next month. So does anybody have any questions? And if not tonight, please just send them to Amber and we'll get them over. And then I'll just bring them in next month.
I guess I have questions about Beacon, but I'm not sure. I mean, like, if the train is sailed, then it is what it is. So they've got until May or June to close on the property, right?
Yeah,
Still.
I believe everybody had a copy of the PNS that we sent. The diligence period was 2 years, so I'm pretty sure it goes till the end of June.
Okay. And then the deal that we had on the table with them before Beacon got involved was we were going to give them X amount of dollars that was starting to approach, correct me if I'm wrong, $1.8 million.
That's correct.
And in return, we were going to get about 100 and something, 120 units, 130 units.
It was 100. We were going from the 10% to the 25% mark, and ended up being an additional 28 units.
Right, but total units were going to be 120 something, right?
Yep,
And then we were going to get 28 affordable units.
that's correct.
Okay. Now Beacon gets involved, or they were kicking it around. Now they're out again. Now we're starting from scratch with GSX.
Well, they're back to their original proposal of the 122 units, which
Okay.
they still feel comfortable with.
Okay.
What they did do was shore up, they actually did survey work. They actually did some engineering. They looked at the wetlands. They actually did what probably should have been done a year and a half ago. But they're in their 2-year period. They figured they could get something to work out with Beacon. The substantive difference between the two outfits is GSX doesn't typically hold property. Beacon does.
Mhm.
Beacon was going to be a much reduced project, but much more affordable.
Okay.
They use financing directly from DHCD, HUD, some federal grant programs and things like that, which were restrictive in what they were allowed to do, which some of us may be familiar with. Those funding rounds would typically go in January, so they had no intent of really doing anything this year.
Okay.
They were going to be a whole nother year. So perhaps that had something to do with, how they couldn't make a deal work. Or they just felt shy about, the way the market's going, and GSX doesn't seem to be. So it's very similar to what they were doing over on Pine Street.
Mhm.
So they're basically, they get the money together, they put it together, and then they go out and they sell big chunks of it. And now you see like a big construction outfit that's actually working the property. Just to dovetail that conversation, apparently they're pulling their building permit.
It's really annoying.
Yeah, it is.
What I do?
The cameras.
The
Just,
sound from the camera,
Oh, okay.
horrible.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, the building
Building
permit should be pulled by the end of the year, which means we'll get that additional year of safe harbor from the Pine Street property. So there's a funding mechanism that happens in November, which is something to do with their agreement. So they're supposed to have permitting in place in November, and then another big chunk of cash comes into the project.
Okay.
So I think that approach they're taking on Pine Street is very similar to what they originally intended to do at 27 Upton.
So if they don't close on the property until May or June, and there's a funding mechanism in November, we're talking about construction in 2024?
I'm sorry, I blurred the two projects together. It's just
Okay.
the Pine Street project, there's some funding mechanism that happens this November, which is why they're confident that the building permit's gonna get pulled. And I think
I
it's
see,
being
okay.
close to being issued anyways. So
Okay.
that has something to do with it for these other projects that are out there, because it's gonna provide a whole nother year of safe harbor.
Okay.
This, of course, is still a project that goes to the planning board instead of the ZBA. So, my original arguments in favor of it are still there. I think this, now that it's at the point where it's at now, we just need to shore up what our financial responsibilities are again and what they're going to bring to the table, and make sure we don't burn another year. Especially after we get to the point where we're comfortable with what the grant is. So, does anybody else have anything to send back to them?
How should we be thinking about this?
Hmm.
I'm trying to understand the context as a trust member, about how I should be thinking about this opportunity. I kind of disagree with what you're saying about waste of time. These large developments, this is just how they go.
Fair enough. Yep.
We're talking tens of millions of dollars of funding. There obviously are issues on site with materials and whatnot. There's gonna, we know how that goes in terms of developers looking at risk and material handling and remediation, all that kind of stuff. So I think we need to be a little bit patient.
yeah, they're probably not in a rush. The procurement process right now in construction is a nightmare.
Right.
So,
So I don't want to be in a rush with it. I don't want to be hurried. I understand that there are some built-in time pressures with any development project. But I'm just trying to wrap my head around how should the trust be thinking about this. We had some early discussions about a number of units sort of, divided into the investment that the trust would be making, and the fact that the trust's sort of fallback position would be that we would have you know, some collateral left if the thing went sideways and,
Yeah, first position on the property.
One of my bigger concerns is, you know, we've already had them try to back out and get a different developer in, to do something slightly different. And to the best of my knowledge, our financial commitment remained the same, even though we were getting fewer units. But what's to say that over the course of the next 6 months or so, as they're, you know, fulfilling their due diligence environmentally and, you know, going before planning board, that all of a sudden the scope of the project becomes smaller, but our financial commitment remains the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're gonna have to address, you know, in the grant proposal as it stands.
Right.
So, I mean, one of the things in that 1.8
good point.
million is we were gonna be able to recoup the ask at the time, this is 6 months ago now, was the sewer and water connection fees. We were getting a sizable chunk back. And then the permit fees from the select board was also something that we discussed. So our exposure was a little bit further down the road in that, and
Right.
so it kind of brought that price tag for us down into the 900, 950, which I believe is what the property's gonna be worth.
Right.
So if we were first position there, you know, at the very least, if we went belly up, we just get the property.
After the wetland survey, is that changed at all, the value of the property? Has it not been assessed again?
Well, I think it hasn't been assessed again, or appraised rather.
Looks like a sizable area.
Yeah, it's a tough spot there. They're shoehorning that in.
Yeah.
You look at some of the concepts, some of the renderings that they sent. It's just it's one step further before they, you know, really hit the permit process, which is really what's going to dictate.
And were they giving us an even mix of unit type?
So that was something that
Because if it goes to less, maybe we get more 2 bedrooms. So.
right,
that's something that we had always told them is we wanted some count of 3 bedrooms in there
Yeah.
as well. And they
Still
were
not.
waiting till the point where they were doing the blueprints and the architectural work.
Yep.
So
They're gonna have less units if we want 3 bedrooms.
Right.
There's just no way around it.
well, they want to do some underground parking too, and some, you know, some things that are fairly expensive. So
I was surprised, looking at Eastland's numbers, how much more it cost them to reimburse a 3-bedroom than a
Yeah.
2-bedroom.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a tough sell for any
It is.
developer.
Right.
Because that's an ongoing subsidy, that they eat every year.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the whole thing is even the 2 bedrooms compared to the 1 bedrooms. My guess is the assortment is going to be 1 and 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, there's 1 and 2s, and then there's. What do they call them? EFFs. There's no window in the bed, so you can't really call it a 1 bed.
I mean, they did, it's worth pursuing though, for sure. So I know Eastland, they changed their design a little bit to have walkouts coming out the back, and it wasn't a massive cost increase for them, and they were able to accommodate for, you know, just a handful of 3 beds. But, you know, those are
Yeah.
gold for families that want to
Yeah, seriously.
have
be
their
the
first homes in
first-
Grafton.
Could be
Yep.
the first level where they have all that clubhouse space.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, so that's
Right.
part of it. That's the one key difference that I noticed between GSX is more for a commercial application.
Yeah.
They're for amenities and things like that to drive
Yeah.
their base.
Yeah.
That's why it was originally proposed as a 55 plus, because that's the market that they're, you know,
They're
going
chasing.
after.
Yeah.
Beacon
Yeah.
was a much different. There was more working class housing. There was not many amenities there, and they were still down to a phased approach where they would probably do about 60 units and then probably never touch the project again. That works much better on the land anyways. This one's going to be tough. Now, they did say that they were only going to impact about 5,000 square feet of wetland space, but I didn't see where that 5,000 square feet was and how far into the buffer.
yeah.
That can get a little bit of a pain.
Yeah.
I will say the elevation's nice. They took the library context into account, so I mean they're on the right aesthetically.
Yeah, I think they're going to build a
High
nice looking building.
Yeah, it's
because
nice.
they want to attract people that are going to pay a little bit of a premium to be in a nice looking place. So
That does make, it does add some complexity though, so I hear what you're saying, Ed, about should we be negotiating for a number of units
Right.
versus 10 to 25%, because 25% of,
Of what?
you know, if it ends up being 80 units, I don't know what it's
Right.
gonna end up being, but then I don't know how to really think about what the right number is, but
And it's an interesting dance too, because, you know, there are gonna be a number of issues that I'm sure their due diligence will come back with about the land and, you know, what planning board says they can and can't do with it. And, you know, they're going to want to make this as profitable for them as possible. But, you
course.
know, we have an obligation here too, you know.
We're also directly subsidizing the additional 15%.
Well, that's it, right?
It's 10% they could just do by right now.
Yeah.
They don't even have to talk to us.
At $100,000 a pop. We just wanna make sure, I just wanna make sure it's not $1.20
Yeah.
a pop by the time we're all done.
And it's hard to, like, you know, figure out what their requirements are, how much money we're putting in, how much good faith they're looking for to help them through the permitting process. All that stuff is gonna be part of this. But like for us, just like a pound for pound, you know, if we're getting 18 more units, we're gonna pay $100,000 a unit basically.
yeah, there's no way we could build for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's rental too, so it's really hard to make that comparison, but that's kind of like the simplistic look at it.
What is your sense of GSX in terms of their relationship and willingness to work with the town and just as an entity? So, do you have a good feeling about it?
I think they're truly into the commercial piece of it, the Pine Street thing. There's a certain level of opportunistic, you know, entrepreneurship there. So, you know, Pine Street, the only reason why they looked at that, and they were the only bidders on the Upton Street one, is because they were familiar with Pine Street. And they were one of, 3 bidders for that particular project. But when you're up in the 390s, as far as unit counts, you know, the margins there are far more forgiving.
Sure.
But that's the only reason why they bid on this, because they have some affinity for the town. They were able to capitalize Pine Street fairly quickly, which is a good sign. So that means they have a lot of people they can go to for the money. I think anything less than 120 units, I don't think that's gonna work for them there.
Yeah, their financing plan that they sent us looked. I haven't done a million of these, but it looked very much legit and very realistic.
They got the money for Pine Street, so I'm guessing they'll get the money for this, but I can't.
It's just so much has changed with the interest
Right.
rates.
Yeah, in the last year, I mean, it's crazy.
The cost of money is alarming. They sent us that proposal and they updated it to the modern. They feel that rental price is gonna continue to increase. So they're willing to eat another 2 percentage points on what they're buying.
I was shocked to hear Carl's thing. 2 beds, like 750 square foot, 2 beds going for 1900 bucks. That's insane.
That
At
that was
at
the affordable rate.
housing rate.
I know.
Yeah,
that's
right,
what
I know,
That's,
right.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the subsidy is right there.
My-
It's
Like,
I
right.
that's the
calculated the market
Insane.
rate backwards at 0.3 at 30% of your income. That market rate would be affordable to somebody making just over 100,000 a year.
That's just,
Yeah.
Those are issues that we're not gonna be able to solve here, but
Yeah.
at least the availability is there. As it stands right now, there's not a lot of availability out there, which is of course what's
No
driving
one's
the
moving
prices.
because the interest rates are up, so nobody's.
well, and it's what makes the Eastland
The supply is
development
less.
so valuable. You know, they're at 50-60% AMI, which actually makes it
Affordable.
Yeah.
affordable to somebody.
Right.
Yeah, but you're also offering a lot of units there.
Yep.
So they're able to disguise it too.
I just wanted to make one point about the 1.8 million. That's going to be worth less the longer we wait, or
Right.
the longer they wait, I guess.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, yeah.
So, just worth keeping in mind.
That's a great point.
That's going to get them less
Yeah.
less distance.
Yep.
The longer it takes them to actually use it.
Makes sense.
Just remember that 1.8 is coming on the side that they profit most from. So the seed money, the starting capital, the cash up front to do this process is far more expensive. So while it's true that they're gonna be able to buy less with it, they're still able to buy far more with the upfront money we're giving than they're gonna be able to do with the GP money that comes behind it. So the big dollars that come in subsidize the entire thing. We're getting a big chunk of a known quantity at a fixed rate. So we're basically just going in and saying, okay, well, you were gonna put 4 million of your own money in, now you only need to do 2.2, and 1.8 still goes a long way, so. All right, so I'll bring him in the next month.
Sounds good.
And then again, use Amber to kind of funnel any information you need to get back to him. Let's see. Oh, last one is 25 Worcester Street. So, MHP is using two people, Laura and I believe Claire, out of that office. They couldn't make last month's meeting. Nobody could do anything last month's meeting, so there was no reason to have it, which is kind of why we missed it. Or why we didn't, whatever. Anyway, so she sent a concept work. It's for 48 units. I did a site walk with them just to make them a little bit more familiar with what it looked like in the real world, with the grading there and, you know, where the sight lines are. So it gave them a much better impression of what they can do with the property. So they sent it back. We sent some of the original engineering work from Waterman that did our work a year and a half ago now. So they kind of re-envisioned it, and of course they sent it to it. It's just a red markup, but they actually had their survey firm, you know, shore up the flagging and stuff like that, so they know what they're working with. So we can shape this a little bit more, or we can just say, okay, you kind of know what you're looking for. We have a mind for it. We let them get an RFP generated with what's under the concept, and let's go out and see if there's any appetite. One of the interesting byproducts of having Beacon introduce the GSX is I introduced the 25 Worcester Street property to Beacon, and they were interested under the concept of the frail housing, and there's a market there for them, so they would be interested with it. And then I was able to find two more contacts via them that I was able to say, oh, you know, this is what we're kind of looking to do. Are we on the right path here, or are we wasting our time? And they said they'd be very interested. So at the very least, when we publish the RFP for what we're doing right around the 48 unit mark, we have a couple people we can send it directly to. So we should hopefully have some layer of interest. But fashioning that RFP, we need to make sure from our perspective what are going to be some red flags, you know, what do we want in it. But it might be easier for them to just provide us with a RFP,
Yeah.
and then we kind of go through it like we did with Chris. So if you guys want to approach it that way.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I'd like to do it that way.
So, why don't we just, I don't know, I think we need to vote for it. Let's just direct MHP to provide us with an RFP under the current concept and design.
Okay.
Do you want to bring that up real quick? Just,
The design?
yeah. It's essentially where we were
Yeah.
This is where we were.
a year and a half ago, but whatever. These things take time. So,
Well, it's a little bit smaller, and this is a
Yeah, two buildings.
yeah,
Very-
Yeah, it's
two buildings, 24 units each, 3 stories. You know,
Contextually sensitive to the
Yeah.
residential,
Yep.
to the
You
rear.
got a short face, so it'll look like a house from the front, ideally. But
yeah, I think aesthetics we can kind of hone in. I
yeah,
think
absolutely.
anybody who's going to pick up this project at this unit count is going to be using the same material and the same architectural designs that we're going to see everywhere else.
Yeah.
So, and again, this goes to the ZBA, so we can tighten up those things when we get through the process. This is 1.3 spots per unit.
It's a lot of buffer. I mean,
it is.
Looks more comfortable than
yeah.
the other ones I've seen.
So one thing I noticed in this, I don't think the original set of concepts had the elevations listed, and this shows that they're on that to the right, on the right side of things. They're going to be up like 10 to 13 feet.
Yeah, there's two different parking lots. There's gonna be like a sloped ramp in between them, and then
Right.
that path between the parking lot and the building is probably just like a ADA ramp.
Yeah, but so like on the other drawing, where the building is to the back of the, like farther from the street, there, that corner, that top right corner there is up 13 feet
That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
So
they're gonna have to regrade it.
and the house right there next to it, that puts their this first floor 13 feet up from where that house's first floor is. So
It's a good point.
I think the other one is a lot more reasonable, at least in that one little detail.
And it hides the parking from the
Yeah,
street.
well, and so in the other one, the parking lot is in that same position, being up, I think it's about 10 feet, but it's just the parking lot. You're not putting 3 stories on top of that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the other one too because it looks more like a its own little neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, I like this one has the amenity area in the front, but we could probably change that if we wanted to.
You have a lot of real estate that's further
the
down.
right,
And
yeah.
that's if you look at the contours down there and if you're out there in person,
It's
the
all
grading there's
brush.
not much to,
No.
it should be fairly straightforward to work with. Can you go back to the other slide real quick? I like that it's on the street too because most of the houses are actually, 30 feet
Close
from
to
the
the
road
train.
too.
Yeah, they're close.
So this will look more uniform with what's going on. Sight lines, traffic impact, and things of that nature. This is pretty straightforward. It's a pretty easy project. I think the grading there is going to be fairly straightforward too. I would like them to get a little bit more than 1.3, but frail housing doesn't generate a lot of trips per day, so that's an argument they can make with ZBA. I would like to stick as close to what we use for village mixed use in the overlay districts because it's been proven.
They got the space.
They get plenty of space.
Okay. So next steps, we're not meeting with MHP anytime soon, I suppose. We're just going to direct them to draft the RFP.
Yeah, whenever they get it, I'll have a meeting so we can
Perfect.
look at it. So that was what I would figure we could have in 2 weeks.
Great.
Everything seems to take just a little bit longer than perhaps I hope. So I think I'm hearing to what Matt's saying, just a little bit more patience on my part. So if it takes a month, it takes a month. But I will continue to harp on it so we can keep these things moving. Because I would like to see this in the same process with the ZBA as perhaps Carl's as well. And while we're going through the housing production plan, because that's going to build our argument for what we're trying to get accomplished. This, of course, has the town meeting authority behind it, so to speak. It is what the town wants. So, within reason. But
I would say it's spot on.
Yeah.
If we're doing frail housing on that site at this density, I think it's perfect.
Yep.
It's exactly what was proposed.
everybody I spoke to who was willing to take a look at this said anything under that 40 unit mark they probably wouldn't even look at.
Mhm.
So there's that weird window, and the only reason why Frail works is because there's a host of subsidy out there for getting these things built.
Sure.
Do they do
So-
one beds? Do bed?
I'm not actually sure, but I'm guessing in the RP that she's going to use the same format as the
Yeah.
other towns that have incorporated these facilities. So,
Do you know what the amenity area
no idea.
roughly? Okay,
No idea.
I'm just curious.
Super park.
Yes, yes.
Splash pad.
I mean, no.
That'd be perfect, wouldn't it?
Guaranteed to be passive recreation.
Yeah, anything, we're just not gonna let any teens from town use it.
Yeah, no
so-
teens.
No teens there, so it's not gonna be a swimming hole for anybody. My guess is it's gonna be a pretty retaining bench, basin, filled with cat and nine tails and stuff like that. Beautiful.
Feed the fish. Duck.
Okay, so everybody's happy with this, so I think we're moving pretty quickly with some of these things. Hopefully we can keep the momentum going, keep everybody interested.
I'm sure they'll be interested.
Okay.
Bruce, what do you need?
Nothing, I think I'm gonna
Bruce just do it all himself.
Nope. Just like GSX, I'm gonna bring GSX back in. I'm gonna ask Laura from MHP just to get us a drafts RFP for what we're kind of looking for here. As soon as they produce that drafts, I'll have a meeting for us to go through it. So if that's in 2 weeks, I'll have it in 2 weeks, and it would just be a single item. Because hopefully, I just want to get it done before the end of the year.
Sure.
So, and it takes 3 or 4 weeks to go through the RFP process, so to speak. So, we can get it before the holidays, that'd be great.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'll include the select board into Carl's presentation and encourage them to watch, just so that they've got a little
Yeah.
early
Okay.
preview.
I think that one's gonna need a little bit of hand holding from us. And so, while I like his numbers and everything like that, we're gonna have to introduce him to the sewer department and things of that nature.
When's the last time, I'm sorry I came in late for that, but when's the last time something was there?
David, do you know when the Farnall body burnt down? It's like 15 years ago, right?
It's gotta be 10 years ago or more.
Okay.
I don't remember, but, yeah, I mean, I think Grafton Foreign Motors, they burned and then that was, I think, complicated by their roof being, a real heavy snow that winter also damaged that.
Yeah.
I think it was that same building. So between the snow and the fire.
I'd like to say it was
I don't
there
know,
while I was on
it's
the
gotta be
planning
10
board.
years or more.
Okay,
So 14 years ago.
okay. I mean, obviously something can go there.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Now that
shall see.
parcel would be best left vacant.
Right.
You're being facetious. For the record, you're not on the mic, but for everybody at home, he was being facetious. And it's the perfect opportunity to find some housing.
Yeah. Okay.
Put it in there. Right.
Any other comments I'll make off the record.
Perfect. Perfect.
So just a quick update from my standpoint too. I sat in on it was a like 3-session tools for housing production seminar. It was one of those MMA seminars with CHAPA and DHCD and whatnot. So I got the videos from that stuff if you guys want to look at it.
Oh, totally. Was that the one recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, I meant to go to that.
It was a weird time. It was like Thursday afternoons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I went to those too.
Don't
There
work.
was it was awkward timing.
I was a little on and off with it, but I got the videos, so you guys.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
recommend everybody at a minimum. A lot of it is real standard 40B stuff, but the one on the MBTA zoning, because they've kind of finalized their guidance, I think is a good one to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the next meeting, I was going to invite Mr. Robbins to come give a presentation on some of the findings there
Oh, good.
and how they're rolling it. I thought it would coalesce around the housing production plan very well, because it's certainly something that they're going to take into account.
Yep.
When we look at those final numbers, especially for the ceiling for units. Does anybody else have anything? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.